Hi, good morning. This is Larry Rubin. I'm the president of the American Society. The American Society was founded in 1942 by then Ambassador George S. Messersmith and American community leaders in Mexico. The purpose? To represent the whole American community in the country. Today, the American Society and the community represent 2 million Americans living in Mexico, thousands of American corporations giving very good paying jobs to Mexicans and Americans, and hundreds of nonprofits associations that are part of the American Society. Today we have a fantastic panel, and actually more than a panel, it's an interview with a very good friend, with Glenn Hamer, who you will hear in just a minute. And it's being moderated by one of our own board members, Brian Fischel. Brian is a very successful executive. He is CEO in Mexico of Reckitt Benckiser, and I'm sure you've bought one of his products when you're in the supermarket. So check it out in the webpage. But RB is a great, wonderful company of consumer products. And with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Larry. How's it going? Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And yes, I please encourage everyone to buy Lysol. It's the product of the time right now. So I'm very humbled to have the opportunity to introduce Glenn Hamer. Glenn is the president and CEO of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce. And in his decade plus of leadership of the state's most competitive standing, ranging from taxation, education, healthcare, civil justice reform, business regulation, and much more. Also in 2018, Glenn became the founding member of the Chamber Business News, which is a news outlet with over 47,000 subscribers and reaching out the sites and analysis throughout the state. Glenn represents Arizona's business community on the national, the U.S. Chamber's board of directors in these positions, I am sure, trade missions. He participated in Mexico Trade Alliance. Other international delegation destinations. Okay. Mr. Hamer has been selected to serve Business Community Conservation Council, the task force. Glenn's previous career stops during a winning U.S. Senate race and a legislative assistant to the 1995. Glenn also served as the executive director of the Solar Energy Industries Association and is a director of business development relations and Arizona State University's College of Law. And he lives in Scottsdale with his wife and 3 daughters. So on behalf of the American Society, Glenn, welcome.
Brian, thank you for that very kind introduction. And Larry, thank you for having me back. It's incredible what you do and what you've accomplished. I'm delighted to be with you all virtually.
Yes, and I mean the timing couldn't be better to have you here as well. We, as you know, there's an incredible amount of changes. Pandemics and social issues, but from a trade perspective, first and foremost is the new USMCA Act,
yes.
Which was something that had, I think, everybody from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico a little bit nervous. But when they finally got together, we're happy to see that this relationship of business and trade will continue. I think that to start things off, Glenn, the key thing on people's minds is they've lived with NAFTA for 20 plus years. What are some of the real key changes that are going to impact us from a business perspective on both sides of the border?
Yeah, no, that's my CDMX tie-on production. I'm just a guy who's born in a small town, New York City, Mexico cultural capital. A 50-minute plane ride. It takes barriers, but non-tariff removal barriers, and it was four-ish, and congressional delegation. It passed with bipartisan unanimous. For the years, I believe it's one of the larger states. We are the 14th largest state out of 50 states, America. And depending on the year, we think we have a few more people in Philadelphia, but it manufacturing, the agriculture. So we've seen big jumps in industry, semiconductor base in the state with Intel. We have a huge technology sector with companies like IBM, and a huge aerospace and defense with companies like Boeing, Raytheon, Honeywell, and a lot of these goods, one way or another, economy and the U.S. economy. All right, so we get to the 2016. Now, it's true he campaigned against NAFTA. It's true that he has called that trade side. It was also beaten up very badly. Senator Bernie Sanders opposed to NAFTA. So after the 2016 election, the bipartisan coalition that had made it very clear he was going to withdraw from NAFTA. And there were times where it's touch and go. We call it USMCA. Mexico calls it T-MEC. Canada calls it modernize the agreement. So what was really positive about T-MEC over the years, the thinking was, let's modernize trilateral trade, which, by the way, is the largest, most prosperous free trade bloc on the entire planet. So we get to what are the core changes here? Functions of that agreement will exist. We couldn't even have comprehended having this type of call. It was a special section on small and medium enterprises. It updates some of the non-tariff barriers. Importantly, TN, the NAFTA visas, which have been very to work on this side of the border. And in fact, when you added all of these benefits up, an independent tribunal in the United States found that it would add $1. That's quite a bit. And my final point, and I think this is really important, is how you would talk to would say that Robert Lighthizer was their favorite Democrat. He rebuilt the bipartisan coalition for within the public of the United States. And when it was all said and done, this agreement, it doesn't feel like that, with a historic margin, to the point where history of the United States, except for the first one negotiated in 1985 with the country of Israel. So here we are today. Tomorrow, July 1st, it takes effect. And we believe in Arizona that it's going to be a big win, because it's going to enhance the manufacturing by national governors. We also think e-commerce is an incredible opportunity. I should have said the de minimis amounts have been raised, so we could easily export up to about $120 into Mexico without the customs regulations. And we have a lot going on in e-commerce. In fact, my final comment, and I think this is a great opportunity, is we have something called Skybridge in Mesa, Arizona, where I believe it's still the only place in the United States where we have Mexican customs officials, U.S. customs officials working together so they could pre-clear merchandise and send it anywhere in Mexico. So we're excited about July 1st. We believe that it's going to be part of the solution in a post-pandemic world. And we believe that the agreement that was negotiated retains the really good parts of NAFTA, while adding some new provisions that will increase prosperity for Canada, the United States, and Mexico.
Well, and let's stay with that theme of modernization of the agreement. And when NAFTA was approved, there was no Amazon, there was no Apple iPhone, there was no Netflix streaming videos, all of which seems is becoming more and more borderless. How is that impacted, or how is it addressed in the new agreement?
Well, there were some provisions in there that I believe that protect the ability for data storage centers to be located wherever they so desire. There's been some issues with some other countries, say in Asia, where it's been a very different type of arrangement. So, data centers is actually becoming one of the major industries in the state of Arizona, where we've got Amazon and a lot of the major companies have put in massive facilities here because we're geologically boring. We don't have earthquakes, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have tornadoes, we don't have that kind of stuff. It does get a little hot. I like to say as a chamber guy, it's a dry heat, but it's 120, it's still pretty hot. On the e-commerce and digital side, the digital provisions on the USMCA, it's the first trade agreement, I believe, in U.S. history where we've had a separate chapter on digital goods. So what that means, if you boil it down, is that it's going to create the ability for the United States and Mexico to ship digital goods with intellectual property protections as we move to a more digitized world. You mentioned Amazon. I've read a lot of books physically. I've got a bunch behind me, but now I read a whole bunch digitally. And how do you protect that? And this agreement updates this and is a model for other trade agreements in terms of digital goods.
Now there's a tax war brewing between the U.S. and the EU with regards to Facebook and digital advertising and where they're paying their taxes. How is that addressed?
Well, I'm not sure if this agreement really addresses the digital taxation issue. In the world, including Mexico, the United States, and Canada, are playing under the same set of rules. But what I'll say is why I think one of the things that's so important about this agreement, and let's start with this point: Mexico and Canada are our neighbors in the United States. We're Nogales, Arizona. The world is breaking up a little bit into two teams, and I don't mean to be derisive to any other country, but it's basically two teams right now: Team USA and Team China. That's what's going on, and it doesn't mean we're going to be at war. We're not going to. We're going to figure out a way to peacefully coexist and compete productively. But the stronger the Western Hemisphere is, the stronger North America is, the more leverage in a positive way all three countries have for fair trading rules with other nations. And one of the reasons I believed it was so important to get this agreement negotiated and on stable political grounds. It doesn't matter we'll talk about the election later. It doesn't matter if the Democrats or Republicans are in control in the United States in terms of the support for the agreement. It's strongly bipartisan. One of the real benefits of this agreement for the United States perspective is that it gives us, in my opinion, increased ability for all three of us to set rules of the road when it comes to things like digital taxation, where countries in other parts of the planet may have a different approach.
Now you mentioned the seemingly cold war between the U.S. and China. The Economist recently came out with an article saying that of all countries to win in that war, it's possibly Mexico, from being a place to bring manufacturing closer to the U.S. Are you, from your point of view, are you seeing that? Are you seeing plans being made? Are you seeing that direction coming?
Absolutely. And one of the things on the digital side that I should say why it's so important is, while it is true the U.S. has over the years had a merchandise deficit with, say, Mexico, even though a lot of that has to do more with oil and gas, the service side of the economy.
The bringing manufacturing to Mexico as a response to China. So
I'll just say for the United States, there is a bipartisan agreement. Again, this doesn't matter who's in the White House, who controls the House or the Senate. There is a bipartisan agreement that we need to bring supply chain back to North America. And I believe that you're going to see, and as well as with that, Taiwan Semiconductors is going to put a $12 billion plant here in the Phoenix area. we are seeing all of the major manufacturers talk about, not just talk, but start putting action plans into place, how they can get more of their supply chain into North America. And, one of the issues that did come up during the pandemic that were very important for US supply chains. Now, I'm first going to say that all governments, whether it's in Arizona or Mexico City, are going to appropriately protect their people first during a global deadly pandemic. But I do believe one of the things that's going to be very, very important is that we work very closely together in the United States, Mexico, and Canada to make sure the safety protocols match up as much as possible, as well as the opening and the closing. Because if we're going to have these supply chains interwoven and, say, strengthened in terms of what exists here and things moving over here, we've got to be careful with the closures. And my final point is that isn't just, I just want to make it clear, it's not just a Mexico thing. It's a US thing. We have 50 states in this country, and states treated manufacturing very differently. Arizona, we never closed manufacturing. Other states did. So that's I think going to become a very, very important near-term item for all three countries to address.
Well, I mean, that leads actually to one of my other questions is in the pandemic, and I personally have a factory in Maquila in Tijuana, and but the border towns where a lot of the manufacturing and assembly is being done, it was there's states in Mexico as well, and it was a learning opportunity to how the two countries communicate and work together in manufacturing.
Great question. I believe we need to be very proactive and have some sort of trilateral workforce safety commissions, so that we're all on the same page and we understand, particularly for these critical supplies and goods. We have to remember a lot of the things that are getting manufactured here are medical devices, are products that we need to keep going no matter what. I mean, it is, in a pandemic, you don't want to close down, and you don't want to close down agriculture when you think about it. We need to eat. No matter how bad the pandemic is, human beings need to eat. So I believe that we're going to need to have some sort of mechanism in areas like agriculture, manufacturing, where certainly for the United States and Mexico, and I'll admit I'm a little bit more centric in this area simply because of Arizona's geographic location. But I do believe we're going to have to be more proactive going forward and doing the best possible job, which I think now is going reasonably well in terms of sharing health data. And this also extends on the migration front. I mean, you take a look at the agricultural industry, a place like Yuma County, a very large percentage of the workers every day certainly during peak season cross in from Mexico. So I think we're going to have we're going to need to put some structure on this. I think that's what we learned by the disruptions, that we didn't quite have the structures in place, and now we know that we need something.
Is the chamber getting involved in the most recent 180-day stay on work visas in the U.S. and having an impact in how we transfer back and forth? I mean, it's yeah. I mean, the real impact, and I do know it wasn't an agreement with a lot of a decision with a lot of agreement on both sides. So,
well, we want to. Here's the take of chambers. We want as much good. We still need workers in a variety of areas. High tech, agriculture. We still, even with record massive unemployment, there's still a number of areas where we need certain skills. And to me, one of the greatest comparative advantages of the United States is the best and the brightest and the hardest working people on the planet want to work here. I live this every day. My wife is Israeli, so I get reminded of that every day of the magnet of the United States. I'll just tell you, chambers across the country, including ours, strongly oppose what the administration is trying to do. Look, it's the Trump administration overall has been very, very good on tax policy. They've created a situation where the United States, again, is one of the most competitive tax policies in the world. We had probably the most uncompetitive from a rack rate. We've never had an administration better on regulatory reform. They've been excellent on energy, and not just fossils. We have the largest solar plant being commissioned in the Las Vegas area. But on trade, it's still there's a mercantilist feel to it, exports minus imports, and immigration is pretty much a 180 from the business community. So we're going to resist in the Congress. I would expect that the U.S. Chamber may even get engaged legally. We need these workers. Companies rely on these workers. And here's the final point. All the evidence is it increases U.S. domestic employment. It adds jobs. It doesn't take away. And final point is, if you do buy that it's Team USA versus Team China, it's a battle for talent and necessary skills. So closing off talent is not going to end well for the United States. And we're going to respectfully resist those policies.
Well, that leads into another question of mine is, how are you game planning the election? What are your thoughts, and any, more importantly, any implication do you see to the Mexico-U.S. relationship?
I feel like the Mexican-United States relationship is at a very good place. As I was saying, what gives me great encouragement is that there's Republican and Democratic buy-in. People really in the United States feel good about the trade agreement. So there's a durability there that I believe will go forward regardless of who's in the White House or the United States Congress. I would say, but I'll say this: if it is President Biden, you will see more of I would expect a return to normal U.S. trade policy, meaning less of an emphasis on tariffs. Tariffs is far and away this administration's favorite tool. We consider, by the way, at the Arizona Chamber and the U.S. Chamber, tariffs a tax. They're not paid by Mexican manufacturers. They're not paid by Chinese manufacturers. They're paid by Americans, and then they eventually wind up being paid by consumers. So, we want fairness, but we do not like what's been going on with tariffs. I do think you would see a change in that direction. I do believe you would see much more of a desire to rebuild friendly coalitions that could be useful for not just economic matters, but security matters. If you're out there saying that China is causing all of these sorts of problems in intellectual property and security, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there's accuracy to that, we believe it would be a lot more effective to bring our friends in in North America, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa together, as opposed to this constant threat of tariffs, which doesn't build friends and doesn't help the United States economy. But I'll say this: on the congressional side, we'll have to see. There is definitely energy on the left in the Democratic Party. They don't like trade. Bernie Sanders voted against the USMCA, and that part of the party is gaining steam. So that does cause me concern in the Congress. But on the presidential side, I would sense that if it's a second term with the Trump administration, There's a lot of buy-in with the Ambassador Lighthizer, the Larry Kudlows on the importance of trade, the Jared Kushners. If it's President Biden, I would expect that you would see that, and then probably some add-ons in terms of new friendly initiatives with Mexico and Canada.
That's good to hear. Looking at doing business in Mexico, with Mexico, what, even with USMCA, do you see as the largest barriers that as a partnership between two countries we should be working on?
Well, the barriers, it certainly has been very well received at how enthusiastically Mexico approached USMCA. I mean, basically it was the first of the three countries to pass the agreement by an overwhelming majority, and then pass it again when a couple things were changed. Mexico dramatically changed its labor laws to meet the requirements of the agreement. All of those are well received. Where things are not well received is, people see what some of the things that have happened with the airports, or some of the major investments on, I think, one of the beer.
Yep, the Constellation Brewery. Yep. Constellation
Brewer, and that creates nervousness in terms of investment. So I think President Lopez Obrador, it's appreciated at the amount of energy that he has put into the trading relationship with the United States and working on other issues, but there is a nervousness on the stability of investment. Now, I would hope that with July 1 and the new agreement coming into effect, what we will see overall will be a continued building of the relationship. Because I will say, by and large, there is very positive feelings from the different sectors, whether it's aerospace, defense, consumer electronics, you name it, in terms of investing in Mexico. But I would say that certainty at a time where people are very, very nervous because of the global geopolitical and pandemic situation, the more investors can feel that their resources are going to be safe, the more prosperous any country would be.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Definitely fair. Sitting in the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and thinking of cross-border relationships, what's on top of your agenda? What are, like, in the next 2020 is going to last forever, but in the next in the next year, 18 months,
feels like it.
What's the priorities?
Let's really figure out how we could build more together, how we can manufacture more together. We have a modern vehicle industry that's really exploding in Arizona. Lucid Motors, which has a beautiful electric car. The reason why that plant is in Pinal County, Arizona, is because of the supply chain in Sonora, Mexico. We have another incredible company, Nikola, that's building these hydrogen semi-trailers and electric semi-trailers that could literally change the world and the way all goods are transported, not just in North America, but across the globe. And again, that supply chain in Mexico is very, very helpful. But I'm going to add another area. We both countries and both countries have very strong medical device industries. I really would like to see closer collaboration in that area, as well as personal protective equipment, as well as pharmaceuticals. We still have issues here in the United States, the wealthiest country in the world, with proper stockpiling of things like N95s. It's improved greatly. That's the state-of-the-art mask. We have actually millions that are going to be produced right here in Phoenix in a Honeywell plant. But I think that both countries could really get together and say, okay, we're gonna make sure we've got the gowns, the face shields, the masks, the hand sanitizer, you name it, and really make this a project that would be beneficial for both our people. And I would say another interesting thing in USMCA is I believe it calls for the transfer of sort of educational certificates.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot in education I think we could build together as well as we try to have a more liquid workforce. And one other point I just wanted to say is that the NAFTA visa is that is a great policy win from 25 years ago that gets very little attention. And part of the reason it gets little attention, it actually works. They're basically 3-year visas. I think you have to update them every year in 63 or so categories: graphic design artists, engineers, lawyers, a lot of I believe a lot in the healthcare area. But that's 25 years old. And just for the same logic in terms of updating the USMCA for digital goods and intellectual property and small and medium enterprises and e-commerce, I really want our countries to work together and modernize that. There's a whole host of professions, including a lot associated with the Zoom, Facebook call we're doing, that didn't exist. Let's expand those categories out and create more liquidity among the 3 countries in terms of our workforces. That'll put us in a much better position, in my opinion, to compete effectively against the rest of the world. And we've got great universities on both sides. I mean, you've got the oldest university in North America. In Arizona, we have the largest public university in the country, if not in the world, in Arizona State University and University of Arizona and Northern Arizona University, all with very deep ties to Mexico and all with a strong desire to deepen those ties.
Key question: are they going to be playing football this fall?
Oh, God, this is probably not the best day to ask me that. Yes, they will. They will be playing football. The question is, will they be playing in front of fans, and if so, how many? We're going to be playing football in the fall. I'm just going to tell you, there's only so many times I could watch The Office reruns.
Of course.
I need sports back.
Yeah, I mean, the sports that are on, it's just not enough. That's for sure.
And I'll say what is a little bit sad is that the Arizona Cardinals were planning to return to Mexico City this year. The Diamondbacks were going to play in April, first, I think, Major League Baseball games in regular season in Mexico. But, we're going to get there. It's just going to be a little bit delayed, but we're going to get there in person and together.
No, without a doubt. So I'd asked you about the the agenda for the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, and we're really glad that you also have the viewpoint of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, top 100. What is their agenda? How does that differ from what Arizona's working on?
We really complement each other, and I'll just say the mothership really drives the trade and immigration agenda in the United States. The people at the U.S. Chamber, Myron Brilliant, who runs their international program, does a fabulous job. John Murphy, I call him Mr. Trade. He's the one that put more time than anyone in really building the support on Capitol Hill for the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. What's on tap is we want to expand that out. You take a look at the United Kingdom. They're basically a free agent now that they're leaving the EU. I used to joke, doesn't it have a nice ring? USMCA, UK. I believe that we should really, the 3 countries should look to figure out a way to integrate the UK, whose economy is about equal to the size of Canada and Mexico's put together. So that would really help create a new center. So we're going to continue to be aggressive on new trade policies, but we're not going to lose sight of the importance of making sure that the USMCA is implemented. And I'll just say, this is my favorite. We put this out. Governor Ducey and the Arizona Mexico Commission, that's led by Juan Ciscomani and Jessica Pacheco, had the leadership and the foresight to put this together. And what I loved about this report is it showed in every sector of our economy during normal times, like tourism, mining, every single sector benefits from the agreement. I've been asked who loses in Arizona. No one. I mean, literally no one. We all win. It's just new opportunities, new markets. And, I think the faster we could get good cures or a vaccine and all better figure out how to live with this virus, the faster we're going to see great things because of this agreement.
Yeah, clearly, once you get rid of the unknown, things become a little bit easier to move forward. So the USMCA starts tomorrow, July 1st. The duration, the updating of it, how is that being handled? It's not going to be managed the same way, right? There's a stipulation on how often it can be adjusted.
I believe that it has a 6-year term. It was a little bit of a difference, but it's essentially, I think most people think that it's almost automatically going to be extended. So this is a 15, 16-year agreement, which I do believe there is a positive here. Any agreement over a course of a period of time will become updated. And let's just approach this in the spirit of improving it. Again, I was saying, to me, the most obvious place to go next is on the agreement side, is on the immigration visa side. The NAFTA visa is a great visa. So, I would expect that that's something that will be improved during the next round of negotiations. And as you were mentioning, Brian, all these changes in e-commerce with Amazon and all these different companies and digital trade, I'm pretty sure that we're going to have some things in those areas that will be useful to tweak and improve. There may be other attempts at pharmaceuticals and things like that. So I would say that the construction of this agreement was elegantly done. And look, there's a lot of things that if we didn't live in a democratic process, we probably would do a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, it's always important for us to remember, as people who live in great democracies, Mexico, Canada, the United States, that you want to have the public support behind you. And we entered July 1st with all three countries enthusiastically in support of the idea of the world's most prosperous trading bloc getting even more prosperous.
Without a doubt. If you were to point to one thing it left out or did not address, what would that be?
Probably the updating of the immigration of the NAFTA visas. I look at trade and immigration as very similar types of things. We want good people and good goods coming into the United States. And labor is a big part of this equation. So I would have liked to have seen an update in the categories that are eligible for Mexicans working in the United States, Americans working in Mexico, and certainly in Canada as well. That wasn't possible. So I would say that to me is the greatest area of opportunity. I also believe that there's a lot we can do on workforce. I'm not sure that we need another section of the agreement, but this idea of liquidity in skills and degrees is important. I'll give an example. Arizona State University, they've created a dynamic where I believe you could attend certain universities in Mexico basically at a much reduced rate and get credit from Arizona State University. And years ago in Arizona, we had these big debates on whether community college credits could transfer to the universities. That was controversial 20 years ago. Now it's seamless. So a lot of kids save a lot of money. They go to the community college, they get the courses, and then they go to the university. Let's increase the liquidity in the three countries when it comes to certificates. It's not just university degrees. It could be community colleges. It could be trade schools. That's a real area that I think we could all work on and get results, whether it's as part of the USMCA, a working group, or even something that we strive for the next chapter of the USMCA going forward?
Well, I'll give you then the flip side to that question. July 1st, what is the one change in the agreement that you're most hopeful for, as in improving businesses across both sides of the border?
Yeah, great question. E-commerce. I'm very excited about the fact that we have Skybridge here in Mesa, Arizona, and we could ship stuff basically one click, crossing U.S. and Mexican customs, and go anywhere in Mexico. So it doesn't have to go to Mexico City first and to go somewhere else. With the way the world is going, this to me has one of the greatest potentials. In the sense that I think for Arizona, it'll be very attractive. It should create an ecosystem where we could have a lot of different, perhaps manufacturers and small businesses sending stuff, but also for our friends in Mexico, you know, the ability to get goods a lot faster than they do today. I mean, Amazon, I mean, before the pandemic, I mean, they had broken this thing down to the ability to get stuff within an hour or two. Now I try to, you know, remind my my family, convenient does not mean free. We actually have to pay for this stuff. But I think the e-commerce is going to be extremely exciting. And one other thing, when the world does return to normal, and it will, I want to see a lot more in tourism. Mexico, far and away, our friends from Mexico, far and away, our largest source of international visitors. Before the pandemic, flights were increasing both ways, you know, which makes sense, from the U.S. to Mexico. There was a second American flight going into Hermosillo. You know, as I was saying, I love the American flight going into Mexico City. It's a great flight. I'd like to see more of that. That's going to take a little bit of time, but I do believe we'll get back to that programming, particularly as the countries join closer together in things like advanced manufacturing.
Definitely. The Skybridge, that is new, and it's a physical location in Arizona?
It's a couple of years old now. It was ramping up before the pandemic struck. It's at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. It's a former military airport, and it was really the vision was, okay, we have this type of program where Mexican and U.S. customs officials work together to bring stuff in by rail and truck. Well, why not try it with air cargo? And so this is relatively new, but it's something that was gaining a lot of momentum, and still is, I should say, because what's happening is around the airport, warehouses and companies are actively investing because they see what's coming. And that's why the de minimis increase was so important. I mean, in the U.S., the de minimis, you can basically ship $800 worth of stuff from Mexico or Canada into the United States without much customs problems. It's a much lower threshold still for Mexico and Canada. And I would actually like to put on the record, I'd like to see the de minimis standards equalize, not meaning the U.S. going down, but Mexico increasing it, so we could get great stuff to our friends in Mexico with less hassle and cheaper.
Well, from somebody living in Mexico the last 3 years, I'm appreciative of that. We don't have to fill up our suitcases on the way home. So we're coming to the end of our hour. And just want to absolutely say, on behalf of the American Society, we are really honored to have you here. Really good information. Any last words on your end on, you know, how we should be thinking about the future?
We should be extremely optimistic. This agreement, this update is coming at exactly the right time. We need the world's most prosperous bloc of democracies to be stronger and to be more united. We're all three very strong countries. We share very similar values, and juntos, we're going to carry it into the next chapter very successfully. And I just want to thank the American Society. I want to thank Larry Rubin for just being a great force of good across the three countries. And it's a privilege to have to play any sort of part in this next exciting chapter.
Well, we'll also put out there when things open back up, we'll be glad to host you here in CDMX.
I guarantee the second it's safe for both of us to do so, I will be on a plane, and I will, if it's okay, maybe one or two tequilas.
Yeah, that you can count on. That you can count on. Again, seriously, thank you so much for the time. This has really been eye-opening, and you know, we're on the precipice of a new agreement and a continued great relationship between two countries. So exciting times. Thank you for all your time and spending this hour with us.
Thank you. Be safe.
All right. Cheers.